Hi, welcome to Filmaginations, a podcast about your favorite TV series and films. Every few weeks, I will cover a different one and take a deep dive into what happens on the screen and what my favorite moments are. Welcome back to discussing Heated Rivalry. Today, I will cover episode 6. And with that, ending my journey with the series, but only until we get season 2. The episode starts with Scott's speech at the MLH Awards, and it was very important to hear him address his coming out. As we know, what he did gave Ilya and Shane the courage to dig deeper into their relationship, to have hope that their situation is not impossible. After the speech, we see the beginning of the new era of Ilya and Shane. Shane is picking up Ilya from the airport in Ottawa so they can go to Shane's cottage and spend 2 weeks alone together. Shane is waiting in the car, wearing dark sunglasses and nervously drumming his fingers on the steering wheel. He's worried about them being recognized. A moment later, we see Ilya in the side mirror, wearing a black bowl cap and dark sunglasses. He looks so good. Headphones hanging from his neck and his big, strong arms showing in his sleeveless top. He gets in, and the first thing he does is comment on the car. This was not explored in the series yet, but Ilya likes fast sports cars, so he's not impressed by Shane's choice of vehicle. But of course Shane likes it, because it's practical, good in the snow. They get on the road, both nervous and knowing full well that these 2 weeks will significantly change their dynamic, whatever happens. They are silent most of the time, but Shane is trying to make Ilya comfortable. He is his guest, after all. I like how he says he wants to relax with Ilya, because most of the relationship was rushed, and they only had a few stolen moments here and there, after the games or other times when they were in the same city. Now Shane wants to go slower, take his time with Ilya. He rambles about the groceries when Ilya suddenly says, "Thank you for inviting me." It was nice that he said that. It gave Shane confirmation that inviting Ilya was a good idea. And I like how Ilya adds that it's terrifying with a nervous smile, because Shane needed to hear that he wasn't the only one freaking out about that situation. Then they adorably look at each other, just letting it all sink in. I love Ilya's laugh when Shane talks about the excuse he made to his parents. We rarely see him this happy. And then they hold hands in Ilya's lap, and it's also such a rare sight. When they arrive at the cottage, Shane is handling Ilya's luggage, much to Ilya's annoyance. When they enter the cottage, Ilya is looking around in awe of the place. Did you notice how Ilya's comment about knowing Shane had this build went completely over Shane's head? He was so nervous and so focused on welcoming Ilya properly and making him feel welcomed that he completely missed that. He was probably also shocked that he actually had him there, in his cottage, in a place he calls home. He talks about the cokes and the water, but Ilya doesn't care about any of that. He was thirsty, but not for water though. He walks up to Shane, touches his cheek, and kisses him after Shane licks his lips, waiting for him to do that. I love that kiss. Ilya is practically eating his face and putting his hands ever so hesitantly on Shane. Shane gives Ilya an adorable smile as he's stepping up the small stairs. He is so happy having him there. They kiss again, Shane holding his hands on Ilya's face, and Ilya starting to touch Shane's ass and pulling his shirt up. They stumble onto the couch, almost knocking the lamp off the table. They laugh about it as they fall on the couch, Shane on top of Ilya. As Ilya is putting his hands into Shane's shorts, Shane explains he might not last long. It's been a while. And Ilya confirms the same, giving away that he hasn't been with anyone lately. Not for months. Shane is impossibly giddy about that, because it means Ilya didn't want to be with anyone else lately. He preferred to have Shane or no one at all. And even if Ilya is pretending it's not a big deal, it really is, and Shane knows that. He smiles so brightly at Ilya and slows down a little, just looking at Ilya and savoring the moment. He has this pure love-struck expression on his face as he lays on Ilya now. They slow down the kisses, and Shane suggests they should be honest with each other for the next 2 weeks, about what they think and how they feel. Oh, and they will. They will soon admit things that seemed so impossible to admit not so long ago. Eventually they stand up and go to the bedroom, and adorably pretend like Ilya is just another guest, about to sleep in a separate room. I love how they are just standing there, gravitating towards each other, as they have this playful conversation. Unable to wait any longer, Shane takes Ilya by his hand and walks with him to the bedroom. I will never get tired of Ilya smiling. He's in a safe space with Shane, and finally allowing himself to be happy. After another attempt at joking, Shane gets thrown onto the bed and pinned down by Ilya. I live for the banter, the smiles, them being unable to stop touching each other, and for how beautiful Shane looks on the bed, with his legs spread open and his arms pinned to the bed by Ilya's strong grip on them. Shane is melting under Ilya, but his brain is still working and he untangles himself from Ilya to close the blinds. But Ilya stops him immediately. They don't have to do that. Not there. They can finally, safely, fuck without hiding. They end up glued to one of the windows and start hungrily kissing each other. I love that kiss. How Ilya touches Shane's nipples, how he doesn't let Shane drop to his knees immediately. He wants to kiss him first. I love how they kiss, trying so hard not to break off. How dazed Shane is, drunk from the sensations. How they are frantically roaming each other's bodies. They're panting and moaning, and Ilya breathes out in relief when Shane takes him into his mouth. This scene is one of many parallels we get in the episode, mimicking their first kiss by the wall in Shane's hotel room, summer before the rookie season. Crazy to think how far they've come. The next scene we get is the burger scene. Ilya makes fun of Shane, but when Shane says, "Leave me alone," Ilya is definitely not gonna do that. I love how domestic it is. Them making food and just holding each other outside during the day. Once they start eating, Ilya asks Shane about his parents. He really wants to know what they're like. Shane always talks about how great they are. I like how Ilya suggests Shane gets his boring side from his dad. Because kind of, yes. But even if Ilya makes fun of Shane's boring sides, we know he loves it. And that will also reflect in Ilya's relationship with David. But that's for another season. I like how we get a reference to the previous conversations when Ilya mentions the New Yorker. I also like that Ilya is applying a good mix of mocking and being serious about his questions. He likes to make fun of Shane and joke around, but he also wants to get real with him. So he asks if his parents know about him, and he looks at him so tenderly. Then Shane suggests that he would have told his parents about his sexuality, if not for his relationship with Ilya. And Ilya is right that Shane doesn't have to give his parents a list of his hookups. But I also understand Shane in a way. Telling them about his sexuality would have given them the context, and maybe they would have figured out he was messing around with Ilya. That his parents were already suspecting that Shane's gay, so I think Shane could have told them that. But Shane is visibly conflicted and uncomfortable discussing this, so he gets up from the table and they finish talking about it. One time when it gets dark, they sit outside by the fire. Ilya a bit confused why they're entertaining themselves by looking at flames. But Shane is really excited about it, and it gives them the opportunity to talk a bit more. Ilya is less afraid to let Shane see the vulnerable side of him, so he doesn't hide his jealousy about Rose when the head topic comes up. He tries to deny with his words, but his responses say it all. And the air clears a little bit when Shane tells him his sexual encounters with Rose were complete disasters. That got Ilya's attention. They are so beautiful looking at each other, but the moment is disrupted by the sound of the stupid Canadian wolf bird. This scene is so wholesome. The way Shane is laughing, and Ilya is not even trying to hide how scared he is by the bird. The way Shane keeps repeating, "a loon," and how he makes the sound with his mouth. Ilya is so annoyed with Shane, but he doesn't hate him. Not for real. And Shane knows that. And the loon will stay with Ilya for good, representing this very moment and the time at the cottage. But again, that will come in season 2. In the next scene, we see that Ilya ended up laying on the side with his head in Shane's lap. Shane is holding his waist and asking questions about his brother. This must have been on Shane's mind for a while, wanting to ask Ilya about his family, knowing how difficult his family situation has been. He knew bits and pieces, but he didn't know the whole story. As Ilya's mother is mentioned, Shane can finally ask a question about her death. I'm sure he wondered more than once what happened. Shane's face shows the concern he is feeling, listening to Ilya talk about his mother's suicide. Ilya says the words with heaviness, and Shane is there for him, giving him the space to talk about it, without judgment. He runs one hand through Ilya's hair, and with another he caresses his body, trying to comfort him. Ilya wants to continue, but there is another wolf-like scream from a loon, and now they laugh. It's wonderful to see they can get serious, but also laugh through difficult moments. Ilya was laughing at the idea of just sitting by the fire, but now he doesn't want it to end. He enjoys laying in Shane's lap and feeling the warmth of the fire, but also the warmth of Shane's body. Knowing this was the last scene they shot, it makes it so much more special. But I have to say, I kind of wish this scene was more like in the book. It felt more emotional and raw, with Ilya mocking his father's words, his voice breaking, them hugging, and finally shaking with laughter as the loon screamed. That was the only scene where I felt like the show didn't translate the book quite well enough, but it was emotional nonetheless. I was also kind of hoping we could get a wider shot of them cuddling or sleeping in bed, but in the next scene they are focused on their faces and how relaxed and happy they look from up close. It's amazing that the first thing Ilya says as he wakes up is, "I like you," because he can say that now. Soon he will be able to say even more. After the heavy moment of them talking about Ilya's family, we get a very sweet scene of them being playful with each other and joking as they get ready to play a hockey game on the console. I laughed out loud when Ilya said, "I'm on the cover of the fucking game." Right before they start playing, Hayden calls, and Shane decides to pick up as he hasn't talked to him in a while. Ilya is annoyed at that. He chooses a different game to play. He starts teasing Shane with his hand going up Shane's thigh. I adore the expressions and gestures Ilya is making. It's hilarious and hot at the same time. And I lost it when Shane slapped his hand away. But Ilya was not the one to give up. So he literally dives back in, this time getting his fingers inside Shane's shorts. And Ilya's face is so dreamy as he does it. He looks at Shane in a way that would melt him right away if he wasn't trying so hard to ignore Ilya and his attempts at distracting him. Eventually, Shane tells Ilya to stop, but he doesn't mean it, not really. And they both like a challenge. So Shane has to not get hard, and at the same time Ilya is doing what he can to make him hard. I love how they say the names. Shane gets out of Ilya's embrace, sitting up on the backrest of the couch, and in effect giving Ilya even better access to his crotch. Ilya adorably puts his chin on Shane's knee and starts tracing his fingers on Shane's thigh. And sure enough, after a short moment, Shane loses the challenge and gets hard. Which means there's only one thing Ilya can do now: suck him off. I like how the camera stays close at first, showing us just enough to feel the heat of the situation. Ilya fumbles with Shane's shorts and takes him into his mouth. Shane, who already had a hard time following the conversation on the phone, is now even less focused on it. He tries to keep his phone at a distance when Ilya puts his mouth on him, losing himself in the sensation. After that, Shane just tries to keep up with what Hayden is saying, but his voice is strained, his breathing heavy, and he can't help but "fuck" escaping his lips as he is getting closer to his orgasm. Ilya is not only sucking his dick, but also slapping him and driving him crazy, and very soon he needs to put himself on mute as he's coming into Ilya's mouth. Right after, when his breathing is still erratic, he goes back to the conversation, but finally ends it as he should have done a long time ago. I mean, I don't believe that Hayden had no idea what was happening, with how loud Ilya was and how Shane was not able to contain his little moans and control his breathing. Shane gets into Ilya's lap, smiling as he comments on how hard it was. Ilya says he liked it because he likes to be bad. And Shane doesn't let this comment slide. He confirms he is not doing all of this with Ilya just for fun and pleasure. That it's more than that. I'm sure Ilya was glad Shane said that, but he just started joking about Hayden, and the moment ended. Later we see them kicking the ball outside, and Ilya bringing the topic of being a free agent, and maybe joining another team. Maybe Canada. This is just the beginning of them discussing the issue, and the subject comes back when they're relaxing on the couch in the evening. They face each other and their feet are touching. I love how they seek physical contact, even in such a simple way. They are scrolling on their phones when Ilya says, "I could marry Svetlana." And Shane is glaring at him now, thinking he heard him wrong. I love Shane's expression during that scene. As always, his face says it all. Shane is getting angrier by the minute. He doesn't like the idea at all. His eyes are watering. He starts asking follow-up questions. He needs to know. Does Ilya want to get married to a girl in the future for real? Well, he has this problem. Problem with beautiful freckles, a weak backhand, and a terrible car. I adore how Ilya explains, in an indirect and playful way, how he can't stop thinking about him, and how he doesn't want anyone else. Shane was close to losing it before Ilya got to the point, but in the end he is smiling with tears in his eyes. They admitted more than they ever have. Ilya doesn't ever want that problem to ever go away. And as they agree Ilya will drop the idea of marrying Svetlana, Shane is on the mission to figure out another way. Another way of keeping Ilya close and giving them an opportunity to be together. For real. We see him late at night, sitting on the bed and thinking. Eventually, he wakes Ilya up to tell him about his plan. A vision that he can see so clearly. One that would help their situation. Ilya is adorably sleepy as Shane suggests Ilya could play for Ottawa. They could start a charity. They could be only 2 hours apart all year round. Ilya could apply for citizenship. They could be together, for real, when they both retire. I love that the camera stayed close to Ilya's face. He's looking at Shane, processing what he just heard. He's shocked that Hollander is thinking so far ahead. He needs to know. Is that what Shane wants? To be together? Shane is being very honest and open with Ilya when he says he wants it so much it scares him. Ilya turns his face away from Shane, a tear running down his cheek. He's overwhelmed with emotions, and there's only one thing he needs to tell Shane. His lovely Shane, who just made a whole plan to keep him close, to be with him. Shane wipes the tear on Ilya's cheek and gently caresses his face, wanting Ilya to look back at him. He kisses him sweetly, and Ilya gets on top of him, kissing his chest and confessing something in Russian right into Shane's ear. I love how he says it twice, kissing Shane in between, and finally getting the courage to say it in English. He puts his forehead on Shane's and looks straight into his eyes as he says, "I love you." Shane's initial reaction shows the shock of hearing those words. Ilya almost takes it back, suddenly unsure if he should have said anything at all. But Shane quickly says, "I love you too." And Ilya is looking at him soppily, And it takes time for him to process that Shane actually said it back, that he means it. I love how brokenly he says, "Fuck, Hollander." He's crying as he lowers himself onto Shane's chest. Shane can't help himself and says how much he loves Ilya once again, kissing his forehead and holding him tightly, hands in his hair. Ilya's breathing is erratic as he's trying to calm down, ground himself in Shane's arms. It's been killing them for some time now, how much they love each other. But now the weight has been lifted. I like how the camera shows us at the end how Ilya is practically covering Shane. In the book, there has been a mention of how much Shane loves Ilya's strong and big body, and now we can see that even though Shane is not small himself, he's absolutely buried under Ilya's embrace. When the sun starts rising, we find Ilya outside, smoking a cigarette and embracing this moment of peace. Soon Shane joins him with 2 coffees and a blanket. I adore that moment so much. They love each other, and they are safe at Shane's cottage, looking at the sunrise together, hopeful for what's to come. Then we see them making love, very slowly, savoring the moment. It's also a parallel to the first times. First time they met in a hotel room and Shane was sucking Ilya's thumb. First time Ilya fucked Shane and traced fingers up and down his leg once they were done. And live for how delicate this moment is. Later we see them cuddling in bed, talking about Ilya's mum, Irina, and the foundation they could name after her. Shane is a bit shy talking about it, but Ilya loves it, loves Shane. He replies whispering, "She would have loved you, like I love you." And then, on Shane's request, he says "I love you" again, but in Russian. I mean, my heart skipped a beat at that. Shane has a soft spot for Ilya speaking in his native language, and I can't wait to see more of that in season 2. After the lazy time in bed, our boys go out into the water. Shane sits on a rock and watches Ilya have fun in the lake. Ilya admits to watching Shane's documentary about the cottage, but in his usual sarcastic way. We also get a mention of Shane's phone ringing all morning, and soon they will regret not picking it up. Ilya kisses Shane's leg and demands a kiss on the lips from his boy. He can do that now, show how gone he is for Shane and how much he needs him. As they go back to the cottage, Ilya takes an opportunity to press Shane into the window from the outside and touch his leg and his ass, hoping to start something. But things change when Ilya notices someone standing in the kitchen. It's Shane's dad, and he very obviously saw them making out. He leaves as soon as Shane looks at him. David is clearly in shock. But he's not the only one. Shane is freaking out. This is his actual nightmare. Not only being found out as gay before he is able to tell his parents, but also them finding out about Rosanov. This was truly an awful combination. Ilya stays in place, watching Shane pace around, and tries to calm him down with his steady, calm voice, telling Shane what they should be doing. He's trying to stop Shane from spiraling. He stands there, concern and sympathy written all over his face. He waits for Shane to come to him, and when he's finally close, Ilya pulls at Shane's arms lightly, guiding him closer. Guiding him into a hug. Because that's what Shane needs. Touch usually calms Shane down, and being held by Ilya is particularly special. When Shane is able to breathe again, Ilya makes a joke and it releases the pressure and heaviness of the moment. I actually think it's one of the most beautiful things, when you can laugh with someone even in the hardest and scariest moments of your life. Shane breaks down task by task what he has to do now, and Ilya suggests going with him. He wants to be there for Shane, good or bad. Shane, very gratefully, holds on to Ilya for life as he sinks down to the floor. They get dressed and ready to go, and of course Shane is not happy with Ilya's t-shirt choice, because it's not going to help. But Ilya makes fun of him. Don't they know he plays for Boston? They get into the car and Shane is very obviously nervous as they drive to his parents' cottage. Ilya takes his hand when Shane is unable to stop nervously drumming his fingers on the gear stick. And of course when they park, Ilya is the first one to make a move and get out of the car. If he doesn't move, Shane is not going to move. That's also when Shane gets the brilliant idea to just leave Ilya in the car. And that's when he is met with a glare from Ilya that says, "Really? Are you serious?" That seems to be enough for Shane to understand how stupid this idea was. They get inside. Shane's parents are already waiting for them. I can't imagine the shock Shane's mom went through when her husband told her about what he saw. Must have been epic. But now they will find out the truth, the whole truth, directly from the source. Shane stands there awkwardly with his thumbs in his pockets as his dad explains himself and as Ilya comes to stand next to him. Ilya's posture shows how out of place he feels. He is there for Shane, but he has no idea what to do with himself and what kind of reaction to expect. As they stand there, Shane tells his parents he's gay and introduces Ilya. I lost it the way he says, "Rozanov." He is now standing in their house with Shane in his Boston Raiders t-shirt, as Shane is trying to explain why he was caught kissing his arch-rival. Shane doesn't even know how to describe who Ilya is to him, so Ilya adds, "lover," putting a hand on Shane's shoulder in support. But Shane doesn't like that word. To be honest, only a native speaker or someone who knows English very well would know that lover has more sexual context to it, and maybe wasn't the right word to use. But Shane doesn't dwell on it and just continues talking. I love how he confirms that, in fact, he doesn't hate Ilya. He loves him. There is obvious confusion coming from Shane's parents. But they love Shane and are truly as great as Shane described them. So they sit down to talk more about this weird situation. And that's when Shane finds out that his parents already suspected he was gay, but did not in any way suspect he was being friendly with Rozanov. I appreciate how Ilya tells David to call him by his name, and David immediately apologizes and corrects himself. And of course there comes a question of when. When did it all start? Shane doesn't reply for a while, long enough for his father to make an assumption. The All-Star game. They had so much chemistry. And that's true, but only because they've been fooling around for a lot longer. And Shane gives the real answer then. Well, almost. Ilya has to correct him. It was the summer before the rookie season. I just love how Ilya wants Shane to get it right, but Shane doesn't see how that's helpful. And then Shane's mom is visibly shocked how they could have been in love for such a long time. But they are quick to deny that, and Ilya is trying to silently tell them it was just about sex in the beginning. But they don't get it the first time, and Shane is suddenly very aware of the fact that Ilya is about to tell his parents how they were fuck buddies at the beginning. I love them, honestly. Ilya is so happy to be there, happy to answer questions and be unapologetically himself. But he stops himself a little for Shane, who is still uneasy and panicked. But also, it's his parents, so it is more awkward for him to talk about his sex life. Ilya ends up gesturing with his fingers to explain the early situation, and Yuna finally gets it. And that's when it all comes back to the words lovers, used correctly in that context. Shane is losing it. He officially hates that word. It's banned now. Now that the most important things have been said, Shane's mom needs a drink. And she needs to know if Shane possibly ever let Ilya win during their games. They were probably trying so hard not to roll their eyes. Because of course not. They actually love playing against each other. They continue discussing their plan, and on one hand, it was nice that they could do that with Shane's parents. On another hand, they barely discussed it between themselves. They haven't even named the relationship yet. But I guess from now on, they will have someone who supports them, and that's incredibly important. David also mentions Ilya's reputation as a ladies' man, and Ilya so openly admits, right there in front of Shane's parents, that he's only been in love with one person. And then their feet touch the same way they did during their interviews in the past. Just wonderful. Shane's mom gets emotional now as she suddenly realizes that she missed this huge part of Shane's life, and she feels guilty that Shane didn't feel comfortable sharing that with her. She goes outside to process everything she just found out, and Shane knows he has to go and talk to her. The acting during that scene was amazing. How Shane was trying really hard to stop crying. How they both ended up looking at each other, Yuna making sure to tell Shane how proud she is of him, and how he has nothing to apologize for. I think they have a beautiful relationship. Now it's time to talk about the plan. Yuna is ready. And as she talks it through with everyone, Ilya is absolutely inhaling the pasta they were given. I mean, you can probably imagine he hasn't had a homemade meal for a long time, if ever. He is just so happy to be there. He's also ready to show just how much he loves Shane and how serious he is about them. He, without a doubt, would leave Boston for Ottawa to be closer to Shane, to have a future with him. Shane's mom is slightly judgmental, as Shane says she cares a bit too much about hockey. Ilya doesn't mind that. I like how he acknowledges how important Scott's coming out was to him and Shane, how it changed things for them. Shane starts freaking out at that moment. It was too much at once, and he was just so overwhelmed. And of course Ilya is there for him to calm him down. He comforts him with a touch to his back and his neck. And it's the first time he uses the word boyfriend. His boyfriend is here. That was so very sweet, and there's so much intimacy in being someone's safe space. Ilya is not afraid to show how much he loves Shane. He even kisses him at the end, which was a nice change from what we had in the book. This whole moment was important for Yuna and David to witness, to see how much their love is real, and how serious they are about this. How Shane found someone who cares about him so much. I'm so glad they were able to talk about the relationship and show Shane's parents a different story than they've been showing the world. They are rivals, but they don't hate each other. Quite the opposite, actually. They all make plans to meet later that day, and I love how Shane and Ilya insist that the parents text before they come, because they are for sure going to celebrate when they're back at the cottage. And David tells them to pay attention to their phones, because last time he tried to contact Shane, well, we all know what happened. The ending is very lovely, and I'm glad they gave us such a long scene of them just driving and feeling happy and relieved. And they left us hopeful that they will indeed have a future together. And when they were finishing season 1, they didn't know if they'll ever get renewed for season 2. So they left us with hearts full of love and content. And of course those who read the books know how their story plays out later, and how the epilogue has been skipped in this scene, but I think it will be a nice starting point for season 2. Absolutely cannot wait to see that. At the end, I would like to say the soundtrack in Heated Rivalry is amazing, and I'm obsessed with how much it fits the scenes. It beautifully added meaning to the already emotional moments and highlighted what was happening on the screen. Choosing the right music is so important, and they just nailed it here. Thank you to everyone who contributed to the series. Thank you to Rachel for writing this story and giving us Ilya and Shane. Thank you for the newest and possibly the deepest obsession I've ever had. Thank you all for listening. Hope you enjoyed the show as much as I did and had fun remembering what happened following this episode. I will be back in a few weeks. See you then. Bye bye.